A madman was walking a tightrope at high altitude. When he looked down, he saw that it was 500 meters above the ground. If he made a slight mistake, will perish in the underworld. He had no defensive measures in his body. What's even crazier is that the man actually sat on the steel cable. This wasn't exciting enough, and he had to lie on it. Then he started to commit suicide again and let go of the balance bar with both hands. How high is 500 meters? Looking from above, the pedestrians on the ground are as big as ants. Do you think the man will fall? The film is adapted from real events. The man's name was Philip, an acrobat with a dream. That day he learned from the newspaper that New York was going to build the tallest twin towers in the world. Philip knew that the opportunity to realize his dream had come, and he decided to walk on the tightrope between the twin towers, so that he could become famous in one battle. The ideal was full, but the reality was very skinny. He often fell off the steel rope because he couldn't tie the knots well. If such a thing happened at an altitude of 500 meters, he would be shattered into pieces. It seems that he still has a lot to learn. Philip found a teacher and asked him for all the knowledge of tightrope walking, from how to adjust the tightness of the rope to how to make strong knots. The technical problems were finally solved. The teacher told him that the most important thing in tightrope walking is mentality, but this was Philip's weakness. Every time he reached the last 3 steps, just when he thought he was going to succeed, the tightrope under his feet began to shake violently. The next day, Philip came to the lake in the park to practice. Everything went well at first, but the noise around him and the ridicule of the fishermen shook Philip's mentality. The steel rope shook violently, lost his balance, and fell into the water. His first performance failed, but this also aroused his competitive spirit. This time Philip decided to get serious and decided to walk the tightrope at Notre Dame Cathedral. Taking advantage of the darkness, he and his friends sneaked in secretly. He tied the fishing line to a juggling ball, and then threw it hard to his friend on the opposite floor, with a thick rope attached to it. In this way, he set up a steel cable between the 2 buildings. As the sky grew brighter and a crowd gathered downstairs, Philip began to perform. This time, his heart is clear, and in an extremely dangerous environment, he was forced to reach his full potential. The crowd downstairs applauded, and Philip knelt down to pay tribute to everyone. The performance was a success and he was successfully arrested by the police. But this performance greatly boosted Philip's confidence, and good news came one after another. The Twin Towers were about to be built, and he got on a plane to New York. When Philip arrived downstairs and saw the building soaring into the sky, his belief was shaken.
These towers, they don't scale. They just rise and never stop. It's not human. It's over. It's finished.
Philip almost wanted to give up, but when he reached the top of the building and stood with his feet on the edge of the floor, the fear in his heart completely dissipated.
It's impossible. But I'll do it.
The man is standing on the tallest building in the world, his feet slowly moving forward. Then, he took a deep breath and looked down. Suddenly a strong wind blew and he almost lost his balance. Fortunately, Philip stabilized his body. He wanted to walk the tightrope between the world's tallest twin towers, but he had less than 3 months left. But at this time, his friend chose to quit. He thought Philip's idea was too crazy. It is impossible to build steel cables between 500-meter-high buildings. After the teacher learned that he would not take any protective measures, he strongly opposed it, and the two had a big quarrel. Philip used his sharp tongue, and with his persuasion, the teacher finally agreed to help. In order to exercise his balance, Philip stood on the steel cable and let his girlfriend sway desperately. His friend brought a bow and arrow with a long range, which solved the problem of passing the steel cable between the twin towers. In order to understand the structure of the twin towers, he cosplayed in various ways every day, sometimes pretending to be an employee, sometimes pretending to be a reporter. He also asked about the distance between the twin towers. Just when everything was ready, Philip accidentally stepped on a nail. This made it more difficult. His girlfriend persuaded him to give up, but the madman disagreed. Philip contacted several friends to help him complete this feat. The next day was the day of action. Everyone drove out in trucks. He arranged for his friends to hide in the North Tower first, while he went to the most dangerous South Tower because it was still under construction. They pretended to be decoration workers and deceived the doorman. Just when a few people were about to go upstairs, they were stopped by the staff and said that someone had reserved all the elevators and asked them to come back next week. But Philip couldn't afford to wait at all, so he sent the most eloquent friend in the team. With his sharp tongue, the man finally allowed them to go up after all the employees got off work. Although accidents always happened, they moved things to the top floor. Philip gave a gesture to tell his accomplices in the North Tower that they could shoot arrows, but the arrow fell on the beam. Philip had to pick it up himself. The moment the arrow fell, Philip caught him and began to set up the steel rope. Suddenly, the friend's hand slipped and the rope fell rapidly. The two of them were dragged forward by the inertia. Seeing that something serious was about to happen, Philip quickly tightened the retainer and finally stopped the fall at the last moment, which was horrifying to watch. The sky was slightly brightened, and there was not much time left for Philip. At this time, a companion in the north building was afraid of going to jail and chose to quit. After securing the wire rope, Philip and his companions ran to secure another one. At a height of 500 meters, the two of them did not have any protective measures. They stood on the edge of the high-rise building to fix the steel cable. If they were not careful, they would be catastrophic. They finally got everything ready before dawn. Next is Philip's personal show. I have to say, he is really a crazy man. Walking at an altitude of 500 meters, the only protective tool is the balance pole in your hand. He stepped forward step by step on the steel cable. If he was not careful, he would be in catastrophe. However, he had no fear in his heart. Under the watchful eyes of the people downstairs, Philip successfully walked out of the south tower. When he reached the north tower, the crowd applauded him. He sat on the tightrope, staring at the direction he was coming, and a bold idea came to his mind. He got up and walked back again. This time his steps were more practiced and graceful. He slowly stretched his feet back and knelt on one knee on the steel cable. Then, he saluted the tightrope, saluted the twin towers, and saluted the entire city. What a crazy man. He slowly got up and continued to move forward. Suddenly, two policemen arrived. They first arrested Philip's friend, and then persuaded him to come up quickly. Philip got closer and closer, and then he made another surprising move. He suddenly raised the balance pole, then made a gorgeous turn and continued walking back. He was wandering crazily on the edge of seeking death. Then he did the tightrope walk. He slowly lowered the balance pole and knelt on it, which made people's heads tingle just looking at it. He opened his hands as if he was embracing the whole city. On the other side, the police from the South Tower also arrived, but Philip did not panic at all and even danced on the steel rope. No matter how the police tried to dissuade him, he turned a blind eye and even picked up the balance pole again and made another gorgeous turn. He stepped on the balance pole under his feet, folded his hands in front of his chest, and made a very provocative move. Feeling that it was not difficult enough, he sat on the steel rope again. It was uncomfortable to sit on it, so he lay on it again, with one foot hanging in the air and his hands slowly opening. At this height, it was not a big problem for me. Only once in a lifetime. Philip looked up at the sky, enjoying the excitement. Suddenly, a big bird flew towards him and stared at him angrily. At this moment, he finally realized the danger, so he quickly got up and walked back. His eyes were no longer so determined. The shock absorber suddenly shattered. And what was even more serious was that blood oozed from Philip's injured foot due to the long tightrope walking. At this moment, he abandoned all distracting thoughts, lifted the balance pole to his back, and put down one hand. He moved forward slowly, and when he saw that there were only 3 steps left, his legs began to tremble, and the steel cable under his feet shook violently, and everyone's hearts were in their throats. But in fact this was a joke by Philip. He threw the balance pole hard and stepped onto the rooftop.
My name is Philippe Petit. I'm a wire walker.
Philip violated more than 100 laws and regulations and was taken away by the police without any suspense, but everyone admired him. Even the police praised him as a ruthless man, a man who dared to burn for his dreams and was worthy of everyone's admiration. Of course, I'm talking about his spirit, not his behavior. If you enjoy watching this video, you might as well give the blogger a like and subscribe. See you in the next issue.